Hey, what's up, y'all? It's your boy Jeremy from Randolph Running Club. I'm here today after the Chicago Marathon. So, just ran this marathon about a week ago. Almost the day. It's Saturday at the time of recording this, and I just figured it was about time to finally get in front of the camera and do a recap, kind of go over all the things that happened during the race. My kind of stream of consciousness thoughts on everything that I personally did, things I could have done better, lessons learned, and what's next. So let's just get straight into it. This is the fifth video in my Into the Marathon series, so feel free to check out the rest of those videos if you want to follow along with kind of how training went before the race and things like that. And of course, if you like this channel and the information that I'm bringing, the content I'm bringing, feel free to hit that subscribe button, and always feel free to chat with me down in the comments. I'd love to talk to you guys there. So let's talk about the race itself. I'm going to go into a couple different things. So first and foremost, just the conditions of the race. I think it was, I don't think anybody who was out there thought that this was an easy day, for sure. They kind of had like an event alert system, which is, I guess, maybe a world marathon major kind of deal. But point of the story, green means the conditions are, perfect. Things are great. It's a great day for you to set like a PR or break a record, Olympic record or something, world record pace, those kind of things, right? Yellow means it's like less than ideal, definitely suboptimal conditions, but the race should still be able to go on. I think there was like an orange tier that's kind of like borderline, like be careful out there. And then red is like, they're going to cancel the race. It's too hot. There's something crazy going on the course, and it's just not safe for runners to be out there and actually be racing. So when I started the race, it was a yellow condition. So it means that like I was saying, that the temperatures are suboptimal. The weather is just not ideal for marathon racing. What that equated to at my start time, which I was in the second wave. So first wave was like people who are going for the win, people who are running, sub 3 hours, I guess. I'm not totally sure because I ended up catching up to people from the first wave at some point. But anyway, those are the guys and women who are going to probably win the race, right? So they go at 7:30. I went promptly at 8. I was at the front of my corral, so I think I went at like 8 minutes and like 3 seconds or something, or 8 o'clock a.m. in like 3 seconds. So by the time that I had started, it was already, I think, like 73, 74 degrees, something like that, and pretty humid, all things considered. I thought Chicago wasn't going to have a ton of humidity, especially like growing up in Florida. I just feel like I've experienced like the worst heat and humidity that you can basically in the United States. And I guess I just kind of overestimated or underestimated what it could be like in Chicago. So pretty warm for a race, definitely, and that's just at the start. So it was pretty good amount of cloud cover and things like that. So as the sun came out, you can only expect the temperature is going to go on as the race progresses and that you're on the course for a long time. And in Chicago's name, right, they call it the Windy City. It was extremely windy out there. Definitely you wanted to be in a pack of runners and be able to follow people along if possible so that they could break that wind for you. But me, probably didn't do that. So anywho, so like I'm saying, it was just a great event. The crowd was absolutely electric. Got started off at 8 o'clock, like I said, almost promptly there. And it was great. I want to say I started off kind of going to my plan. I was right there with a 3 hour and 45 minute pacer going into this race. Before I found out that the temperature was going to be what it was, I really had in my mind that this was a day that I could do 3 hours 30 minutes or less, which would have been a huge PR because my only marathon I've ever done was a virtual effort, and it was not great. I think I did it in 5 hours and 23 minutes. So I started out, and just my goal was don't blow up in the beginning. Just start up nice and easy, do the best that you can. So first mile, clicked it off in 9 minutes 11 seconds. Felt really comfortable, very calm, but I will say even in the beginning I kind of felt like a certain tightness almost, and this usually happens to me when I go out too slow in like a training run. I find it really hard to end up picking up my legs and getting them like fired up if I start off too slow. So sometimes it's better for me personally to just get straight into race pace, but I was really trying to be very calm and not overexert myself, make sure that I was just kind of listening to my body and where I was at on that day. So first mile 9:11, second mile 8:17. Definitely picked it up a ton, and the goal for me was to kind of ramp down into a pace that, like a race pace that I was gonna maintain. But I think I got a little carried away with the crowd. Honestly, the Chicago crowd, if you've never experienced one of these big world major races, it's just a whole nother beast. Like, my only experience running half marathons and other races were races that had, 3,000 people, 4,000 people or less, and there were 26,000 people who finished the race on Sunday, and I'm sure a bunch of people dropped out just because of the way the conditions were. So that just goes to tell you, I mean, the crowd was absolutely electric. Everywhere you turned, there were just people with signs and, saying all kinds of words of encouragement and things like that. It was really a great feeling. But for somebody like me, who definitely I can cheese it up a little bit for the crowd sometimes, as I was going by some of these people and just feeding off their energy, I think I kind of dipped my pace down a little earlier than I planned to, because my goal was to get around somewhere around that 8:15, 8:20 pace, but I didn't mean to do it in mile 2. So mile 3, 8 minutes, 20 seconds, kind of holding where I want to be. Mile 4, I think there was like an aid station or something there that I kind of had like a little snafu, and I kind of slowed down my pace as well, just so I could drink, get a cup of Gatorade, a cup of water, and that slowed me down to about an 8:41. But I think I was definitely where I wanted to be at that point. I know for a fact that I've gone out and not run. I know that was the pace that I was intending to run, I guess is what I should say. I didn't go out there too fast, I don't think I overexerted myself by running these paces that I'm telling you now. And I was doing a great job with nutrition. My goal was to take a gel every 40 minutes. At every aid station, I would take at least 1 cup of Gatorade Endurance. And every other station, I would take a cup of Gatorade Endurance and a water. And I kind of timed that so that, every time I took a gel, I would make sure I took a water as well so I could wash that down. And when I took a gel, I took some salt stick electrolyte tablets, just because I'm a pretty heavy sweater and it was a warm day. So I wanted to make sure that I was keeping the electrolytes in myself and, having the right amount of sodium. So, mile 5, bring it back down to an 8:32. And I figured this is kind of where I should stay, just based on how I was feeling and how the day had kind of progressed already. And I kind of held that pace, as you see here. Mile 6, 8:47, a little slower. Mile 7, 8:29, mile 8, 8:38, mile 9, 8:38. In mile 9, I want to make a distinction, because this is where I think things started to kind of unravel for me. By this point, we're already at that turnaround point, kind of like we're done going north, and now the rest of the race is going back down south, or east-west. And I felt like a little bit of cramping in my hamstrings, and I have never, ever, as long as I can remember running these kind of like distance races in training, I've never experienced cramping in my hamstrings that early in a race. It's always been much later, and it's usually sharp, but it was like I could just feel it kind of building slowly but surely. So I was like just trying to lock in mentally and say, all right, maybe you're not gonna get like a crazy PR, but like you're still on to have a great day if you can just maintain this cramping. So what I tried to do, maybe this was the right thing, maybe it wasn't, but I felt that I was cramping almost because I was running in this unnatural gait, trying to navigate the crowd and things like that. So I tried to kind of break out of the pack, which wasn't smart because I was running into the wind, and stretch my legs a little bit, and that seemed to actually help with the cramping for a while. So around mile 10, I said, all right, it's time to put my head down and just see what we got. It was unfortunate because I feel like it was a little discouraging in the sense that I tried to put my head down, tried to pick up the pace, but it just wasn't really happening. I just didn't feel like I had it to give. So mile 10, 8:43, mile 11, 8:57, mile 12, 8:40. And when I got to that halfway point, I just realized that this was going to be a race about maintaining. I said I didn't want to walk if I could help it. So I was like, let me just drop the pace and let me just be comfortable the rest of the way, because I'm still ahead of at this point, the 3-hour 50 pacer. I'm ahead of the 3:55, the 4-hour, all these other ones. And I'm like, man, if I could sneak a 3:59, I'd be ecstatic. Even though it's not the 3:30 I was shooting for, that's a huge PR. This is going to be a great day if I can do that. And it would have made me happy at the end of the day. So I tried to start slowing down, and mile 13 I run in the 9:26, mile 14 a 9:10, and I think you need to average like a 9:10 to get under 4 hours. So mile 15 9:28, and then the wheels really started to fall off. I was really hurting bad around mile 16, 10:17, mile 17 10:51, and then finally mile 18 was in 13 minutes. This was the first time that I walked on the course. The cramps just really kind of made their way through my whole leg. I was starting to feel it in my calves. My quads were feeling pretty beat up. And like I was saying, my hamstrings were really talking to me at this point. And I said, you know what? If I gotta walk just so I can make it to the finish, let's do it. Because I think if I had kept trying to run, I would have DNF'd completely. Just probably wouldn't have made it past mile 20 at that point. Even if I had really dropped the pace to like a 12 minute per mile or something like that. So this began what we will call the death march. I was walking, running, alternating that. And I had a pretty good plan at that point. I feel like, it was like maybe I'd walk for like 2 minutes and then I'd run for like 3 and, try to just keep that alternating so that I could maybe stay around that 13 minute per mile pace, give or take. But what ended up happening was the crowd was very electric. They were everywhere, like I was saying before. And I feel like I was just feeding off that energy. And sometimes, you walking past this crowd and the crowd's hyping you up and saying, come on, you got this, you got to run. And like I said before, I like to cheese for the crowd. I like to give, feed off that energy. And I found myself doing things that I wouldn't do normally. So normally if I'm on a training run and I'm in the pain cave like this, I'm like, all right, lock in, stick to your plan. But if I'm walking by a group of 30 people and they're like, woo, come on, you got this, you got to do it, going crazy, I'm going to be like, all right, I can't look soft in front of these. All right, come on, so I start running. And that was bad. I should not have done that because I feel like it upset my legs and caused me to cramp even further because I deviated from my plan and didn't walk as much or as long as I should have. So I'll spare you the details. I just continually slowed down until ultimately I got a huge cramp at mile 24. And that's why when I show you these paces on the screen, everything stops at mile 24 because I went to stretch my calves. And as I walked up onto the sidewalk so that I could lean on like a light pole, both of my calves just locked up so much that I literally, it was like I'd gotten shot or something. It was such a strong, intense, sudden pain that I fell down. I actually fell down. I was in front of, thank God, I was in front of a house that had some spectators. And these women, they came down the steps and they were like there for me to take care of me, offered me some water. They called the ambulance for me, and, tried to give me words of encouragement, but I was in a dark place emotionally for sure. So, they're there telling me like, hey, it's okay. It's all good. We're actually here. They were spectating for their, one of their sisters, I think. And there's a guy there as well. I guess it was like his sister-in-law. And they were saying, she's expecting to finish this in about 6 hours. And they were like, hey man, and I'm 4 hours and 20 minutes in at mile 24 at this point. And they're like, come on man, don't quit, don't do it. And I had just turned off my watch after laying there for about 5 minutes. And I was like, it's over. Like, I want the ambulance to come get me and just cart me away and take me somewhere else. Cause I want to be anywhere but here. And I sat down there with them for about 25 minutes, maybe, just stationary, talking, just having a good time, laughing. They really kept me in good spirits, as good a spirits as I could be at that time for how much my race had unraveled at that point. Because I didn't feel it. Like, just being honest with you guys, I really was in pain there. My calves were like on fire. I was trying to massage them and just get them, going again, but it wasn't happening. And I was just ready to quit. So talked to them for about 20 minutes or so. I called my wife. I was like, babe, come get me. I need help. So Chelsea biked over to me on like one of those like city bike kind of deals. I think they're called Divvy bikes in Chicago. And she was actually at the finish line because she thought I was going to be done at like, 4:45 or something, but it was like not happening. So eventually they gave me enough encouragement and they were like, hey, you're only 2 miles from the end. If you just walk the rest of the way, you'll get this medal. So I decided, you know what, it's time to stop crying. and just finish it. You know, all these weeks of training, months of training, showing up on this day, you know, taking time off from work. I'm telling coworkers about this, and I'm like, man, if I go back there and I'm like, I didn't finish, and I had 2 miles to go after I went 24 already, like, that doesn't even make sense, you know? Get out of your feelings. So I left them and I walked the rest of the way. My wife met me somewhere around mile like 24 and a half, almost 25, and we walked together for a good, you know, mile and a half, 2 miles. And ultimately I jogged the last like 100 meters in to close out the race, just so I could get the finish line picture and not look like I had walked the entire thing. So that, you know, that was the race. I think my final time was like 5 hours, 26 minutes and however seconds. That really doesn't matter because, yeah, that wasn't, it wasn't a great showing. But I mean, regardless, I felt like I'm proud of myself for finishing. I'm proud that, you know, even in that dark time, like, I was able to lock in and feed off the energy of others to be able to get myself out of that place and, you know, move forward. And I'm just so thankful for the crowd at that point, for that family that, you know, really took care of me at that time, called the ambulance for me, called, you know, whatever they had to do to keep me going. Because if it wasn't for them and their support, just in general, my wife's support, thinking about how she was at the finish line waiting for me and I was just not going to show up, like, yeah, I wouldn't have been able to do it if not. So let's talk about the factors of my demise, as I want to call them. I'm going to hop straight into it. Number one, I would say I took way too many steps. I told my wife the night before the race that I felt like I had undone all of my taper. The day on Friday when we flew over to Chicago from Oakland, we were flying Spirit. I should have splurged and got more seats that had more space. I was back there in like basic economy. Excuse me. And, you know, I'm a tall guy. I'm like 6'4", 6'5", and I'm there in those little seats, cramped up, couldn't move, couldn't stretch. And I feel like that didn't help me at all. Our flight ended up being super delayed, and we ended up sitting on the tarmac in Chicago O'Hare for like an hour and a half because they couldn't find a pilot to like move the plane that was blocking our gate. So I spent a ton of time just in a cramped seat that I couldn't get out of. And it was just a long day. It was like we were traveling for like 10 hours or something. So I think my just general stress as well was going up with that. And then, you know, I think the day of traveling and the day before the race, in which I did a ton of sightseeing around Chicago, which was stupid. I should have waited until after the race to do that. But I was averaging like 15,000, 16,000 steps a day during that time. Which for me, I mean, that's the amount of steps that I'll get if I'm doing like a 10-mile run or something like that. So I think that didn't make a ton of sense. I definitely could have been smarter about that and saved my feet for and my legs for the actual race itself. Definitely won't make that mistake again. Big lesson to learn, and I'm happy that it was at my first official marathon that I made this mistake. Yeah, also it didn't help that at the actual expo where I went to go pick up my bib and other materials, the shirt, things like that, there was a long line to get in there. I went on Saturday afternoon, probably around 2 p.m. and it took me, I was probably on my feet for an hour and 15, hour and 20 before we even made it inside the expo, waiting in line, just walking slowly to get to the front and show our COVID vaccine information, to be able to come into the expo and pick up everything. So that was not great. I just spent way too much time on my feet, way too much energy that I could have saved, because I woke up that day already with my legs feeling a little bit tighter than normal. I also probably should have brought a foam roller or something like that so that I could have been more active in my recovery that night as well. I think the second thing that was kind of my demise was just general, like, the crowd of the race. I don't know what it was about how they actually like unleashed the corrals, but I found that I spent a ton of time bobbing and weaving through people. Like, you know, when you're starting a race and you're like kind of jogging and, you know, maybe in like a smaller 10K or a half marathon, for the first mile, you're kind of like, oh, excuse me. Oh, come on. Pardon me. I'm coming through. You know, you do all those things. And what I found was, in Chicago, it's such a big race. It's international. You know, you're seeing all these people there. I just never was able to get into a rhythm, and I'm really bad about that. I need to improve, but like every time I saw somebody and I'm like, I'm running about an 8:30 pace and this guy's running like an 8:40. Like, I should pass this person. So I spent a lot of time where I probably should have just stayed in the pack and just let people take that stress from me. Let them be the shield from the wind, where instead I was passing people because I was like, oh, I'm just a little faster than this person. Oh, I'm just a little faster than, oh, you know what, let me squeeze through here. Let me go through there. Like, I never really settled in with a group like I would normally do in a race, in a smaller race. I was just always passing people and always like shuffling through the crowd and bobbing and weaving until I wasn't, and then I was the roadblock and people were passing me. So, you know, the people that I finished around that caught up to me, they were people from the third wave catching me who were running, you know, 5-hour races. And, you know, I just think if I had saved myself and been a little more strategic in just locking in with some people from my corral and sticking with them for a while, I think it would have kept me honest. It would have kept me running the right pace early on, and it also would have stopped me from expending so much energy, because my watch was even telling me, it was like, hey man, you know, every time I got to a mile marker, I would end up being further and further from that mile. So let's say like at mile 1, my watch and the mile marker were perfectly aligned, but I did so much bobbing and weaving and just not running straight that by the time I got to mile 24, I think I was like a quarter mile or something ahead, almost a half mile. And it's like, that doesn't make any sense at all. You know, like I should have definitely been staying in a straight line, sticking to that blue line that shows you the shortest distance around the course. So big lesson learned. And then my third and final thing, I think, is just general stress. I think I put too much stress mentally on my body, if that makes sense, just from like the day of traveling, the expo, like trying to figure out what to eat and all these things, and like really trying to be so strategic in every single thing that I was doing. It was like, really takes a toll on you, makes you mentally tired. And I think I went into the race feeling a little bit mentally not where I should have been, just because I let all these other things that I couldn't control anyway. Like my plane ended up on the ground for a super long time. I took the train from the airport to my hotel, and the train didn't move for like 40 minutes. And I was like, whoa, what's going on? Whoa, I made the wrong choice. I should have just Ubered, even though the Uber was like $100. So I'm really happy I didn't do that. But I think I spent so much energy thinking about those kind of things that I shouldn't have been thinking about, that really didn't mean that much. I was still going to get there. The race was still going to start at 8 a.m. Everything was going to happen. My hotel was already paid for. Everything was already done. It was like, why am I stressed about these things? And I'll get there when I get there. So I think next race that I do, I'm going to be a lot more calm, and I'm not going to allow myself to stress about those types of things. So yeah, last but not least, I want to talk about what's next. I feel kind of crazy saying this out loud, but I already signed up for another marathon. The California International Marathon, CIM for short, is taking place in Sacramento, which is approximately 2 hours away from me here in California. Actually a little bit less than that. It's less than 100 miles away, I know that. So it's December 5th. I just feel like I prepared so much for the Chicago Marathon, and I kind of let myself down in the sense that I didn't really meet any of my goals. I didn't even have as much fun out there as I should have, I feel like. So I want a chance to set the record right. I want to go back out there and really execute and just knock it out the park. You know, even if I don't get you know, sub 4, 3:30 or whatever, I want to give myself the chance to go out there, enjoy running a long distance, and just have a good time. So I signed up for this race. It's December 5th. I'm pretty excited for it. I'm taking this week to kind of just chill, just do easy runs. The next week as well, I'm going to gradually up the mileage, but mostly easy runs, nothing too crazy. And then I'm going to get back into a really short, just like kind of tune up training block so that I can put the fitness that I gained from this previous training block into a race where I don't completely blow up and do really poorly relative to the results that I had set for myself, or the goals that I set for myself. So that's all. You know, I appreciate y'all if you made it all the way to the end of this video. Thank you so much for your time, your energy, and just supporting my page and everything. Like I said before, you know, if you like the content, hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, chat with me in the comments, and let me know how your marathons are going. I know it's race season and everybody's doing a bunch of big things. And last but not least, as always, stay safe out there, inspire others, and stay blessed, y'all. Take it easy.